Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 73rd episode of Social Suplex's podcast about AEW with a proclivity for positivity. Welcome to all things elite. My name is Austin Summers, and I am the host of this lovely show. And my lovely partner joining with me today is Floyd Johnson Jr. Floyd, how you doing, man?
I am doing great. It is a great Thursday. Found out the movie theaters are opening in my city in about 8 days. Well, actually, it's opening next week, next Thursday, the same day, but I can't go because of, work and stuff. So I will be going to the movie theaters in 8 days. I got a comedy show this weekend. I'm going to see D.L. Hughley. And the weekend after that, I will be watching live wrestling. So, in a lot of ways, my world is somewhat returning back to normal.
Yeah, that's great. Now, I always wondered this because I've seen these theaters before. Are the area that you're in, do you guys have an Alamo Draft House?
No, those are in Texas.
I was going to say, I thought it was just based specifically in Texas.
I've been to an Alamo Draft House, but yeah, they are not in Oklahoma.
Just the fact that I heard that you can order pizza at those movie theaters, I'm just like, oh my God, I would never leave.
Yeah, we have this place called Warren, which is a dinner and a movie place, and you get a full menu. You can order Philly cheesesteaks, pizzas, everything like that, and they have beer, full alcoholic service, and yeah, we have those places here. It's called the Warren in Oklahoma, though.
There was also one thing I wanted to share on the show that I saw just yesterday that I thought was fucking cool as hell. And it's the fact that in Oregon, they actually turned the last remaining Blockbuster into an Airbnb where you can just rent it out and then just watch a bunch of VHSs that they have at the Blockbuster, and it looks super slick, super 90s, and it's like the craziest thing because I remember like as a really young kid going to a Blockbuster that I had as a kid that I had near me, and that I saw that and I was like, if I can get to Oregon after this whole thing is done, I want to do that because I think it's like relatively cheap to do it too for just a night.
Yo, you know what's crazy about Blockbuster? I am so old. I was around when Blockbuster first started and was pushing out the mom and pop shops. Blockbuster was like the Walmart of movie rental places.
Yeah, it really was.
They would come in and they would charge less than your mom and pop shops. They would have more of a selection. So like if a good movie came out, they'd have like 30 of that good movie. And the mom and pop shop would only have 3. And they would effectively just put them out of business and then buy their inventory for really cheap. And so when I was very, very young, it was this place called Magic Movies. That's where I went, and then Blockbuster put them out of business, and then I had to go to Blockbuster. I think that was around 7 or 8 years old, and it was like, well, Blockbuster's going to be it forever. And then it's like, oh... then Blockbuster became outdated by Netflix, and it's just like, it's funny. I've seen these companies swallowing up each other.
Yeah, it's just the whole thing, everything that's been changing over time is crazy. But that's the two things I want to do if I can travel again, is go to a really nice dinner and a movie, like where they serve you dinner at a movie theater. I want to go to one of those, and then I want to go to that Airbnb Blockbuster because it looks really slick.
Yes, the first thing I had to learn how to do when I went to the Warren was to not eat too much. First time I went to see a movie and I fell asleep.
That I can see that, yeah.
Yeah, I got really full. The movie started. It was like started off kind of slow. It took a minute to get into. Gone. Wake up for the last 15 minutes of the movie, and I was like, so the first time I went to it, I was like, I don't think I can do this, because I fell asleep during the first movie, and then, of course, person I was with at the time says, how about you try eating less? Oh, that is an option, isn't it? So.
Yeah, I see what you mean there.
Yeah,
But
it's
anyways,
it's like you go to a steakhouse, you get enough to get full, and it's just
you
like
really do.
when you go to those places, you order a little less than you need to get full.
Just enough to just like fill you up a bit, but not enough to just knock you out into a food coma.
Exactly.
But anyways, we want to thank you guys so much for joining us for this episode of All Things Elite. We have a lot to talk about this week, including the Dynamite Dudley draw continuing. We have a lot more to get into about this week's Dynamite. But real quick, I want to make sure that you guys are downloading this fine show on Google or Apple Podcast, or if you're on Spotify, be sure to share the podcast with your friends. Leave a rating and a review. If you're also so inclined to, you can also leave a donation through our podcast provider, Red Circle. And if you want to support us by following us on social media, you can follow the podcast at AT Elite Pod, follow Social Suplex at Social Suplex, myself at STZoomer4, and Floyd at Floyd Johnson Jr. on Twitter. The big news of the week for this week is the Dynamite schedule changes that will be taking into effect next week. So next week's episode of Dynamite will not be on Wednesday. It will be on Saturday at 6 p.m. So it's going to be a bit of a change. Obviously, NBA playoffs are kicking in. I want to shout out the Phoenix Suns for going 8-0 in the bubble. Holy shit, Devin Booker is carrying that team on his back. Insanity. And also Damian Lillard, my boy, hit his career high of 61 points. Yes. Yes.
Shout out
Game
to the
316.
Lakers that didn't have to play very hard at all and clinched the first division and then didn't care about the rest of the time.
No, yeah, just lost to the Sacramento Kings, too. Didn't really care.
They did not care at all. LeBron has this thing called playoff mode, and it is very, very obvious when he's in playoff mode.
It's also the first time that the number 1 and 2 seeds are held by the same city. Is first time that's happened, so that's crazy. Also, first time since '97 that the Spurs were knocked out of the playoffs. This whole series of playoffs is going to be insane. So, I mean, as a sports guy, I'm very hyped for that.
Yeah, and it starts Monday, right?
Yeah, we're getting right into it. And also, you got hockey playoffs going on too.
Yeah, that was bull crap.
Yeah, I was gonna say
the Penguins got eliminated. And I was very upset because it went straight into the playoffs. You didn't have time to get ready.
I mean, they were not prepared, dude. They lost to the Montreal Canadiens. If you lose to a team who got swept by the current Red Wings, you deserve to lose, honestly. So that's my thought on that. But the big news, obviously, with that, just be prepared for the changes that we're having in August. We have a couple more also coming down the line. I want to say, like, they're going to have another one that's going to be, oh, God, I can't remember the exact time dates. I know we mentioned them last week earlier on the show. And there's just these next couple weeks are going to have the most changes with the schedule. But the biggest one is the next show, which will be on Saturday at 6 p.m.
Yeah, and because of that, the show will adjust. We will try to record like right after the show and get the show out as quickly as possible because we like to record after Dynamite. That's the big thing with me is that I like to, review the Dynamite.
Yeah. And then, of course, the other big news is the Dynamite Deadly Draw continued on. We had 2 matchups to look over today. We had the first matchup, which was Big Swole and Lil Swole taking on Leva Bates and Riche Chanel.
Yes. And for people in this world not sure who Little Swole is or whatever, she is Nicole Savoy. She was in the Battle Royal at All Out.
I was going to say, I thought I saw her.
Yeah, she was in the Battle Royal All Out, but some people might not, that was a while back before they got on TV, so people might not remember. But her name's Nicole Savoy. She's tagged with Swole on the Indies in Shimmer for a while. And she has always went by Little Swole. That just wasn't for this tournament.
Mm-hmm. The one thing I want to say about this match, because the honest thing that I wanted to talk about, because when I saw that she was in the tournament and that she was actually getting some in-ring action, and then she also got eliminated, I wanted to talk, are we just going to not have Leva Bates be an in-ring talent? Because it seems like AEW just isn't really keen on having her in-ring. She's continued to be one of the librarians along with Peter Avalon, and it just seems like they kind of want to keep her out of the ring. And that's, I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel
I don't
about
know
it.
if you watched that match. I am all about positivity. I think Leva Bates brings something to the roster. I think having her with Peter Avalon as a librarian, it's perfect. She's a cosplay person. She enjoys that. I think she brings something to the locker room with positivity and joy. But I have never seen a match of hers that I've liked.
I like her in small doses. Like when she was Blue Pants in NXT, I liked her a lot. But I think she's really good in smaller doses, and like I do think it's interesting because I like Leva, but at the same time, it's like I don't know how much you can do with her. But at the same time, I want to see her in the ring at least a little bit, but that's just personal. But yeah, this match was
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. It's just you have to set a standard for what your women's division is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the in-ring standard, I don't think she meets their goal in-ring standard.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and I get that too. But it's interesting though, just because like, yeah, I really don't know what much to say with this matchup. It was just kind of a meh like match, honestly.
This match was there to establish Big Swole and Lil Swole as a tag team. That was it.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was Rachael Chanel, who has lost every match that she's been in AEW, and it was Leva Bates, who has lost every match she has been in AEW. So it wasn't really set up to be success, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think if you look at when we get to that part where we talk about the matches next week, it sets up to be you have more experienced tag teams on each side.
Yeah, I agree. The next match we had was Diamante and Ivelisse versus Dasha and Rachel Ellering. And I think, honestly, I do enjoy the tag team of Diamante and Ivelisse a lot more than I thought I would, honestly. I just really thought they paired pretty well together. Overall, though, Floyd, what do you think of this matchup?
It was a little better than the first match. I just like it. Like I said, it's like I'm looking forward to next week. But yeah, if you're a person that is all for AEW not putting a lot of women's wrestling on TV, you would probably point to this as your excuse as to not do it, because neither one of these matches, like Jonathan Snowden is somebody I follow. He writes for Bleacher Report, and he writes on wrestling a lot. And he said neither one of these matches were TV quality, and no one wants to hear it. And it's horrible and blah blah blah. No one wants to hear it, but they really weren't TV quality.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. They were YouTube quality, and that was perfect because that's where they were at, and people are tuning in to watch. Like I said, there's one way to support the women's division. Tony Khan is a numbers guy. Affect the numbers. When women are on TV, make sure your TV's on. Tune into YouTube. When they have matches on Dark, watch it on Dark. It's just that it's so weird that people are like, well, just put them on Dynamite, and it's just like, you're in a competition. It's in a ratings battle. You can't just put stuff on. You have to put on what people want to watch. And with ratings fluctuating the way they are, which we will talk about later, you have to put on what people want to watch.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just for what it is on YouTube, it works all right, and like it just shows that these were round one quality matches that were put on YouTube. And I think the closer we get to the next matches that we have for the Dynamite Deadly Draw, I think we're going to see a lot more improvement, and we're going to see some bigger moments, I think, out of this overall.
Yeah, the finals is actually going to be on TV. So
It is, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that later, too.
Yep. So, let's get into the results for AEW Dynamite for August 12th. We opened up, first off, it is Tag Team Appreciation Night, hosted by FTR. So, the opening contest was a tag team match. We had the Young Bucks versus the Dark Order. I will say I loved how the Dark Order actually ambushed the Bucks during their entrance. I don't think we've seen that since, which is interesting because their entrance is so like massive that I don't think I've seen, at least on Dynamite, them attacked after the money cannon shoot off. But it's the Young Bucks. They had a really strong matchup. I do enjoy Evil Uno and Stu Grayson as a tag team. I think they're like just really strong and put on some really good really good matches together. They're very familiar with each other, obviously with Evil Uno and Stu Grayson being Super Smash Bros. On the Indies, and the Young Bucks are very familiar with them. This is, again, a really strong tag team matchup. I think in terms of the precedent that we've set for AEW's opening matchups, opening with the Young Bucks is a strong start, honestly, and I think they did a good job of kicking off the show. So, what did you think, Floyd?
I completely agree with everything you said. This is an indie legend match, basically, because these are the matches a few years ago when I didn't know who the Young Bucks were, and I was kind of keeping up with ROH. Everybody was talking about, oh, did you see Young Bucks versus Super Smash Brothers, Super Smash Brothers? And I'd be like, well, no, because I watched, TV that's on TV. That was a little snobbish, Floyd, and so I didn't go out to look forward to it, but I'd heard how great these matches were, and this was good. It was trying to tell a story. It was trying to further the storyline. So you had the attack at the beginning of the match, and of course Dynamite started off hot because of that. And I thought the match was really good, and you could tell they have a chemistry that other two teams that work together just don't have.
Oh yeah, 100%. You can tell that these guys know what their strengths and weaknesses are, and I think that they bring the best out of each other. Honestly, especially the Young Bucks towards Uno and Grayson, because when they first showed up, a lot of people didn't really know what to expect. But I think the Young Bucks, when they face off against them, they show how good they can be. So we then had MJF continuing his campaign trail to talk about MJF 2020 and how Jon Moxley is not his champion and not our champion with his incredible hashtags. We had the lovely callback to when MJF was cameoed on NXT and got shoved by Samoa Joe, where he shoved one of his campaign partners and just shoved him against the wall. Love that callback. It rewards a lot of people that love these little minute cameo things. I loved it so much. And MJF again just cuts a clinic of a promo, and it shows how good he is, and wants everyone to know that Dictator John does not care about the audience, because if he was, he'd be here, and decides to make him comfortable to show up by just lying on the mat, putting his shoulders to the ground, because he's not a leader, and just calls him a rabid dog chasing cars and wouldn't know what to do if he caught one. And just cut a really strong promo and an interesting shot, too, where they just overhead camera onto MJF as he's lying down on the mat cutting this promo. Super creative. Moxley's music then hits, and then MJF immediately commands every single one of his campaign team members to go up the ramp and just run up to the stands and try to find where Moxley's coming from, because he always comes from the crowd. And Moxley instead comes down the entrance ramp and then jumps MJF and nails him with a stiff clothesline to the back of the head and hits him with a paradigm shift, and then cuts a great promo backstage where we see Tony Khan just kind of staring at MJF, at Jon Moxley, like, oh, that's my boy. That's my beautiful boy. While wearing an Inner Circle shirt, too, I will point out. So, Floyd, this segment, what'd you think?
I thought this segment was great. I could see going forward. I thought the segment was perfect. I thought it was exactly what it needs to be. I want to get into that first. What it needed to be as far as MJF moving forward, going to chase for the title. It was just like you needed this segment. It was like it presented MJF as a big star. You know what he is. He talks well, and this was built towards his strengths. Only thing is, I could see in the ratings, if people care about the ratings, and I don't try to talk about it too much, but I could see it taking a dip because I felt like this really slowed the show down. And it was like it had kind of just gotten started. You had just had the hot first match with the surprise ending, and then you get this long talking segment. It did end in action, but there was this long talking segment. And then for people like me and you that appreciate great promos, it's great. But people that want action, this might have been a time where they were turning to see what was on the other channels, maybe get caught up in Shark Week or whatever. But I thought this was a really, really strong performance by MJF, and even stronger performance by Jon Moxley. Jon Moxley is a badass. That's his character. That's his gimmick. I mean, he adds a few little layers, like caring about Darby and, saying he needs to be out there. If you don't, go out there and help people, you're a punk ass. That is all uniquely Moxley. But, he's a badass. And he came in. He's like, you know what? You think I'm going to try to sneak attack you. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be one step ahead of you. I'm just going to come right down the middle and beat you up. I feel sorry for what Lee Johnson and Wardlow are going to have to go through after them allowing Moxley to beat up MJF, their meal ticket. But to me, it was a fun segment. But it's just like, if I'm trying to be a little critical, I would say I could see some channels changing at this point.
Yeah, I guess so. But honestly, like, when MJF shows up, I do get interested because he always seems to have a way of just grabbing your attention just because of how, like, charismatic he is and how just easily hateable he is. But I can understand how after you come off a quick match like that, you would then come in with a promo segment. I can understand how that would feel like it slowed the show down. And then we then had another interview actually with Matt Hardy with Alex Marvez backstage. He wasn't cleared to wrestle for another 10 days because of the cut he got from the chair. So he said Sammy was walking in the distance because he believed he saw him. And what happened was he swore he saw Sammy walking off screen. He then goes after him with a pure, like, blind rage. But it was an AEW ref and not Sammy. I like how, even though Matt Hardy is strayed away from the multiverse of Matt Hardy and how they're straying away a little bit from the Delete persona, that there's still a little bit of it there. Because I do think having a small bit of that is a good thing because it just adds a little bit more variety to his character. And not going full, like, switching personas, I think is a good thing. But having it be like a slight Jekyll and Hyde sort of thing, I think is a good thing. We then got it. Oh, go ahead. Did you want to say something? Oh,
can you hear me?
You there?
Oh, okay, yeah, I am.
Okay,
here. Thought that was a perfect way to say it on your part. Like I said, MJF. I don't really, like I said, MJF's one of my favorite promos. The only person I've enjoyed more was Cody's early, when he was cutting those epic promos. Those were great, but he hasn't done one of those in a while. And but yeah, MJF's probably my favorite promo in the company, other than Taz. So I don't have a problem with it. As a wrestling fan that has been watching wrestling forever, of course, I'm cool with this segment. But I tried to put myself in like a casual fan and what they're used to from AEW in those first few segments. And this was the first time where it went match and then one of these long segments. It usually goes match and then you go right into another match.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now we have the TNT Championship match between Cody and Scorpio Sky of SCU. First off, Mike Chioda, he signed. Hell yes. I'm all for that. I think that's amazing. And we also now finally have the finished TNT Championship all done. It's finished. There's no more need to just jump around the fact that it's not finished anymore. It is now finished. Overall, real quick, Floyd, thoughts about Mike Chioda getting signed and thoughts about the final look of the TNT Championship?
Okay, final, Mike Chioda, awesome. I mean, he's been doing this forever. A lot of people, if you listen to Dave, speculated that his contract was just really, really big. Because if you think about it, working somewhere for 30 years and they give you 5% every year. You know what I mean? Eventually, you kind of get out of what the top limit that there are for that person. So it looks like he wasn't really fired for performance. It was like he was like, okay, let's just mutually set ways because of the money, which is fine. So he's still a great performer. He's been on TV. He's been in major matches throughout his career. Of course, I mean that's a quality hire right there. And you saw as soon as he gets there, like one of his first matches is Cody. It's like, and then he's in the main event with Jericho. So there's a trust there that's not going to be with any other ref coming in like that.
Now, on the TNT Championship side of things, how do you think the belt works?
I am ready for them to release it as a replica so I can buy it.
All right.
I mean, it is dope with the red strap and the gold. Those are my two favorite colors, red and gold. So it's like literally the belt of my dreams. So
I will say, actually, this is a personal thing. I actually think with the red strap, the silver looks better over the red strap. And I think with the gold plating, I think a different colored strap would actually make the gold pop more. But that's just me.
Let me tell you, a black strap I think would work well, but I do like the whole red strap there. And it does make it look like it's on the same level as the AEW World Title because it looks just as good.
All right, nice. So. Now, this matchup, I will say, as somebody who is very excited for Scorpio Sky to get this opportunity, very excited. I thought this was one of the biggest matchups in the history of Cody's Open Challenge he's been having with the TNT Championship. I found this match to be quite disappointing, honestly. It felt, and me and Floyd talked about this before, and he hit it right on the head. It felt like another Cody Championship match, and it didn't really seem like Scorpio got a ton to shine with. And I find it very odd considering that Scorpio's run that they've been pushing, his singles run they've been pushing on Dark and having him have big singles opportunities against guys like Chris Jericho. I think his match against Jericho was much stronger than this one. And I thought the fact that having the entire Nightmare family on Cody's side and then Scorpio just being by himself didn't sit right with me. I thought, if possible, they should have had CD and Frankie come down with him and support him if they're going to have the American Nightmare family there. If not, then it should have just been Cody and Arn versus Scorpio. But at the same time, we then had the finish of the match, and then afterwards, Brody Lee cutting a promo challenging Cody, having the old design of the TNT Championship in tow, which I thought was a nice touch. But Scorpio just walks out of the ring afterwards, and we don't really get like a good like spot of them like showing respect more so. It didn't sit well with me, and I thought it was very disappointing considering that we know Scorpio can be so strong, and I felt like he should have had such a better performance. And I think Floyd will echo my statements as well for this matchup. Yeah,
I didn't want to because how much I love Cody and how much I was looking forward to this match. And I do blame myself much. I had this match. If you watch Dark and you watched Scorpio's winning streak, then you saw him put the chair in the middle of the ring and state that he's not just a Dark guy. He's moving up. He's going to challenge it. He's going to kick the door down. Right? That's that promo. Then Cody's going to the back of the ring and he stares him down. I'm like, and I even said it's like some Rocky Apollo stuff. They stare him down, stares at the belt, stares at him. You didn't even have to say the words. It was just like that was all that was needed, right? Then you get the entrances. No admittance and freaking Scorpio kicking the door down. Oh God, kind of gave me goosebumps, right? And then we got Cody coming out with his whole crew, and it looks like a pay-per-view. Hold on just a second. Okay.
No worries.
No, don't worry about it. Yeah, and so it looks like a pay-per-view. It looks just like he did at the last pay-per-view I saw him at Revolution, where he came out with the whole Nightmare family. Even Allie's out there. Allie, QT, Dustin. Got the Nightmare family flag in a black, and it's just like, I'm ready for war, right? It's like, man, Cody's a little nervous. And then you got to the match, and it was just a match. And it was just, it's like I'm not shitting on the match because it was a perfectly executed, well executed match. But first of all, I didn't understand the story of the match. Cody has busted ribs to me. If Scorpio's on that next level, he should be able to beat Cody with busted ribs.
Mm-hmm.
Cody had busted ribs and just beat him. I was like, if I was anyone else, and I was like, if this was like real sports, and it's like, okay, we finally gave you your shot on the big stage and you just lost, I send you back to dark. That's what I do. It's just like you couldn't hurt an injured champion, and you say you are on Dynamite level. You want to be one of the best in the world, and it just felt like, and like I watched the match the first time, and I was like, I watched the match the first time, and I wasn't feeling it. And then I watched the match the first time, and I wasn't feeling it. And then I watched it the second time about 45 minutes before we did this, and because I really wanted to give it another shot, and I was just like, it was better than I thought it was last night. And I think last night had more of disappointment of expectations that I had built up on my own. But I felt like everything done with the match helped build up those expectations. As far as the entrance and then, the pre-match promo, I felt like they had built the match and then it didn't deliver on the build. And Cody won, which I'm always happy Cody won. But my thing is Scorpio needed to have him in trouble. Maybe like his ribs are hurt. Maybe have him in a Boston Crab or something where it looks like Cody might tap out. Or hit his finisher and Cody kicks out. But nothing in the match gave me any type of excitement that Cody might lose.
Yeah, like I said, I feel mostly the same way. And I think just with that, I love the point that you made that like they built this up like a huge match because you have Scorpio's great promo and you have the Nightmare family coming out and you have the video package they showed before the matchup. It's just, you built it up like it was a pay-per-view style matchup, but what we got was just a solid Cody title defense on Dynamite.
If they had just, let's say last week, Cody had his match, left, and they just announced somewhere in the week, Scorpio's going to be the open challenge, and then they just did the match without all the entrants and stuff, I would have been like, man, that was a really good match, and that was it. I wouldn't have said anything. It was just all the build that they did to build up my anticipation for this match, and then nothing. And it's one of those things, I will always, and this might be the AEW fanboy in me, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, because it could be leading to something else with Scorpio. But as of right now, it was just like, it came off like a wet fart.
Yeah. But anyways, let's move on to the next matchup. It is the AEW Tag Team Champions Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page versus Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus of Jurassic Express with the titles on the line. I loved, first off, Luchasaurus saying hi to his mom and saying it's amazing after 65 million years of dinosaurs getting a title shot. I think that was great. I mean, I also loved before this match as tag teams were saying their favorite tag teams of all time for Tag Team Appreciation Night. Hangman and Kenny were asked, and Kenny was like, oh, it's the Young Bucks. And then Hangman's just like, oh, I thought you were going to say us. And he's like, well, I mean, we're two singles guys, but Young Bucks, like, I thought that was great. And just continuing just the fact that these guys are just still not 100% on the same page. And I love both these teams so much, and I think they did a hell of a job. I loved just how hard Luchasaurus was just beating down on Kenny at one point. I think the commentators even said they thought Kenny's nose might have actually broken. And this match was really, I think this was one of, in terms of matches, I thought was up there for one of my favorites of the night. And the tag team champions in Kenny and Hangman retained, and their Buckshot Lariat V-Trigger combo. It was a very, very good match, I felt like, and I think it did a really good job of showcasing Jurassic Express getting a title shot. So, Floyd, your thoughts?
Yes, it would have been too on the nose to do what I thought, but it would have been funny if Hangman and he asked who his favorite tag team was, and he said FTR. I thought that would have
Oh
been.
yeah.
I thought that would have been funny, but it was probably in second thought it was probably too on the nose. Of course Hangman's just drunk that just likes to beat people's ass, so of course he's gonna think that his tag team's the best because he's on it. So I thought that worked out, and of course Kenny being Kenny and humble, and he picked Young Bucks, and then he takes a shot at the internet, and honestly I felt personally attacked. He says we're just two singles guys. How many times have I made that point over the last few weeks?
Seriously.
So it was like Kenny personally attacked me. So he basically said my name. No, it was kind of funny. I thought that was appealing. But then the match was good. It served its purpose. Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus have not been really pressed as a dominant tag team that wins a lot. So the fact that they never really were in the match to the point of where you thought they were going to win actually worked with the story. Because, again, using the title matches together, one highly built up and then dud. The guy just wins. The other one, not built up at all, and then the champion just wins. And one I didn't have a problem with because they didn't put a bunch of pomp and circumstance behind Jurassic Express getting this title shot. It was just kind of announced. They were there to take the L. And it's just the same thing, pretty much presented two different ways.
Yeah, honestly. We then had another backstage segment, this time with Santana and Ortiz. Obviously not gonna apologize for what they did to Trent's mom's van. Not gonna apologize. So they just take their luggage and gear and throw it in the showers and then just destroy it and just
pour bleach on it. Oh yeah, they
really poured bleach on the damn things. Like,
yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Just continuing to be absolutely despicable human beings, and they're doing very well getting this heat on Best Friends. And then the big segment of the night. Young Bucks and FTR in the ring with Rock and Roll Express, Arn Anderson, and Tully Blanchard for their big tag team appreciation night segment. And this segment is pretty damn good, honestly.
Yes, so I've seen some people that didn't like this segment. I don't blame me. Someone pointed out the fact that, these people were like famous back in the 80s. And, and similarly, if you were in the 90s and they brought somebody that was famous back from the 70s, nobody would know who they are. But I pointed out that there's this thing called the internet and YouTube. So a lot of people are more familiar with Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard than, people in the 90s were familiar with people in the 60s or 70s. So but then I was pointed out, and this is where I lost. He's like, how many people in the AEW fan base do you think could say 5 things they know about Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard? I was like, that's a tough question. So, let me ask you, as a person that is significantly younger than me, how familiar are you with what Arn and Tully did in their career?
Honestly, like I said, I want to be more familiar with it, but I'm not too familiar as a younger guy. So I can't say I know too much about that era of wrestling.
Like, I'm 39, and it's almost before my time. Like, the Horsemen were like, I was like 3 or 4 when they got together. And it was like, that was wrestling to me, and that's what I grew up on. But, you think about it, 3 or 4. I'm born 3 or 4 years later. It's before my time, and I can tell you everything about Arn's career. I can tell you everything about Tully's career because those were 2 of my favorite wrestlers growing up. So it was a great point that most people aren't familiar with, but that's the whole thing about AEW. You got someone like Tony Khan that is familiar with it, and if we got to tell you who these people are, we will. And if we got to point you to YouTube links, and FTR does put up gifts at times. It's like, if we have to educate you, we will, but you should know who these people are. And I love that about it. And I love that about this. I didn't really understand, so if I'm trying to get the timeline right. So first, FTR puts over the Rock and Roll Express. Then the Rock and Roll Express was like thanking them and blah blah blah, and then said to their face that the Young Bucks were the best tag team in the world. Then Tully Arn talked, right, and then Tully went off on everybody, and he's like, "How are you, either of you, saying that you're the best tag team in the world when neither one of you got the titles?" Which Jim Ross has pointed that out so many times, and it was like, but Tully said it a little better. Then I don't know how the whole bumping happened. I don't know if you can hear that knocking. They're doing construction on my apartment, and it's very loud, so I do apologize if you could hear it. You know, and then there's the altercation, and somehow Dax gets on the ground, and I was like, huh, and he's messing around with his knee brace. It turns out he wasn't hurt, and they drop Ricky Morton on his head with a spike pile driver, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the course of events? So I'm guessing this was FTR's heel turn, but I don't think it was a heel turn. Literally, the Rock and Roll Express, they booked the Rock and Roll Express to appreciate them, and then the Rock and Roll Express tell them to their face that they're not the best tag team in the world. I think they deserve to get dropped on their head.
Honestly, I will say, I don't think it was necessarily a heel turn. I do like the fact that when Heyman came out, he was like, "Bro, what the fuck?" and just like was so confused by what they were doing. I honestly think, and this is what I got from him, this is how FTR is trying to push the Young Bucks to face them.
Okay, I could see that. It's just very, for me, it was just like, if I invited you to my birthday party, and I'll say, hey, give you the mic, say a few words, and then you put over how awesome my best friend is.
I'm gonna let you finish. But your best friend had the best birthday of all time.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna drop you on your head too. I don't know. I felt like FTR was justified.
Taylor Swift should have smacked Kanye right in the face for that moment.
Yes, but I felt like FTR was justified in how they were insulted by the Rock and Roll Express. But it was awesome, and it was funny because Arn and Tully, a lot of people think of them as Dax and Cash. Again, just for all you know, Dax is the bald one, Cash is the one with hair. And then, you know, Ricky and Robert are what the, you know, Young Bucks evolved to be. You know, there was Ricky and Robert, and then there was a lot of other offshoots of Ricky and Robert, including the Rockers. And then there was Matt and Jeff, who you would honestly say was the kind of evolution of them. And then it was Matt and Nick that was the next evolution. So you're looking at these tag teams, and it was just like looking in the mirror for how good each team was, which was, you know, for me, very awesome. It took me back to my childhood. That's why I love these two teams. Are a large part of why I love tag team wrestling as much as I do. So this moment for a 39-year-old guy. So I'm out to 18 to 34, but I'm still in the 18 to 40 something demo. I'm still in the main demo, the big demo. So for this guy on the edge of the main demo, 18 to 49 or whatever, I loved it, and it was like just emotional for me. But yeah, I could see somebody your age like, okay, I'm supposed to respect these guys. Okay, you know what I mean? It's just I could see the difference in how you took it in.
Yeah, I still really enjoyed this segment, despite me not being too familiar with these guys' career, like in the long run. And overall, just seeing the big moment there for him in general was really great. And I thought it was super, like the FTR turn was so good and so much fun to watch. But anyways, we then had Hikaru Shida, the AEW Women's Champion, taking on Heather Monroe. And just a kind of quick matchup. It wasn't anything too out of nowhere or anything. It was just kind of there. And overall, it's just showing how the women's division, like they're trying to just build to a big moment for who Hikaru Shida is going to face. And it's just, I mean, it was just a filler match, honestly. Not really much we can really go into that.
I mean, it was a match to show how dominant Cheetah was, and it ended up working out.
Yeah. And then we had real quick a Jake the Snake Roberts segment telling the audience what instilling fear means. Wow, the Murderhawk monster, Lance Archer, was just destroying people in the background, which I thought was hysterical. It was so good.
Yes, he was just like he seems like he's a pit bull off his leash at this point.
Yes. Honestly, he does. And then it was the $7,000 obligation match between Chris Jericho and Orange Cassidy. Inner Circle and Best Friends were banned from ringside with Mike Chioda as the referee. And Jericho also, before this match, made sure he wanted to talk to Mike Chioda and be like, make sure you do the right thing. And this match was really, really strong. These guys did a really good job. The finish I thought was kind of awkward, but I mean, it still worked for what it was. But overall, I thought this match was really strong. The fact that Mike Chioda stopped Jericho from using the bat, and he was just telling him to look the other way. I thought that was really strong heel work. And overall, Orange Cassidy gets the roll up, pins Jericho. I thought the match could have been a little bit stronger, maybe, but for what it was as a follow up to the last matchup, I think it did a good job following up. Orange Cassidy finally pins Jericho and ties up the series, it seems like, and I think we might be getting a rubber match between these two.
Another one another one where I have to say my expectations probably hurt my enjoyment of this match.
Okay.
Because I thought it was going to be better, and I thought it told a decent story, but in the end, it was supposed to be that orange package that a juice box that he does, or whatever he calls it, and Jericho didn't know how to take it, so it just looked like a really ugly pin.
It didn't look great, honestly.
Yeah, so no, as far as furthering the storyline, I think we're going to get OC versus Jericho, the rubber match, at All Out. I think that'll be the big match. Maybe it ends up being for a number one contender spot or whatever they decide to do with it. But I think we'll get the rubber match at All Out, and I think that's going to be very important moving forward. And I thought it was done. I thought it was pretty good. Overall, if you're looking at Dynamite as overall, I would honestly give it a B, not an A.
Yeah, I was going to say overall the show was fine, and there was it was strong. It was a good show, but I don't think it was anything outrageously good.
Yeah.
Just personally.
If someone missed this episode of Dynamite, and they'd be like, what'd I miss? I'd say not much.
Yeah, not really.
Yeah, it's it moved the storylines going forward. We're heading to All Out, and I think it did everything that it was supposed to do there. But if you looked at that marquee with all the matches, it damn near looked like a pay-per-view.
It did.
And it just didn't deliver like that. And and like I said, I blame myself. I have no problem blaming myself for the expectations, because I still think this was a perfectly fine episode of Dynamite. It's just, I think I had built it up as this was going to be this epic night that I've been talking about from years from now. And it's just it was another night. And the whole idea of it being Tag Team Appreciation Night, I don't feel like tag teams were appreciated through the whole show. Felt like it was a 2-segment thing.
Yeah.
Because you got to bring up the Steiner brothers, you got to bring up Harlem Heat, you got to bring up Demolition, you got to bring up the tag teams, the Briscoe brothers. You just got to give them shout outs, and I don't feel like they were appreciated the way I wanted them to be appreciated.
Yeah, and that's just a personal gripe, I think, but I do agree.
Absolutely. That is completely based on my personal love of tag team wrestling. I know no one else probably feels that way.
I will say, looking at the card, we definitely both of us thought that this show was going to feel a lot bigger than it was. It wasn't. It was still solid, and it wasn't a bad episode of Dynamite by any standards, but from what we wanted it to be, I think we were just slightly disappointed, but
yeah. So solid episode of the show. Like I said, you saw every storyline move forward. We didn't talk about right after the Scorpio match. Brody Lee comes up on
I mentioned it slightly, but I didn't mention his full promo.
Yeah, Brody Lee comes up on the screen, and he has the old TNT belt, and he says, "You're about to put some respect on the Dark Order's name," and he cuts a solid promo. I hate that Scorpio was still kind of in the ring when that happened. And
I was
Scorpio,
gonna say he kind of walked out after Scorpio that promo was done.
Yeah, and Scorpio didn't fully get his moment of Cody saying how good he is, that look in the eye or whatever. But it was a killer promo. It was like, it was just on that whole nother level of, it was like when people tell you how good Brody Lee was before he got to the WWE, a lot of people, him and Ha, and they're like, man, I don't know. He was just a Wyatt guy. He is really starting to show you how much his talent and ability was kind of, not used. Because he is really good.
Yeah, he's my favorite part of the Dark Order, and honestly, I hear a lot of people talking about how they don't feel the Dark Order, they don't think it's that good, and I can understand that mindset. I will say, though, that despite everything, I think Brody Lee is great. But that's AEW Dynamite for this week, and we're going to go ahead and give you our preview of next week's Dynamite, which will be taking place on Saturday. It will be a Saturday night Dynamite, but before we do that, I want to let you know that support for All Things Elite is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-belt grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over their technology developments to provide you the best tools for your grooming experience. And if you use the code SUPLEX, you get 20% off your order and free shipping. Floyd obviously has had many great experiences that he's shared over the podcast, whether it be from multiple of their products, and I'm sure he can tell you himself their products are very, very good.
Yes, their products are amazing. You definitely need to be going to manscaped.com. They now got the hair and body wash that they're offering. Cologne is a part of the package. I mean, and then, like I said, it's like those things that that give you that sense of purpose. If you're a person that's not in a relationship yet, and you're thinking about, you got that person that you want to talk to, you don't want to go up to them like not smelling well and not feeling confident. So, get you some Manscaped. Like I said, get your game up. You step your grooming game up. It's like everybody's on, like, probably, most people are, you're on that level 3, 4, but you're trying to get that 5-star level. The way to get to that 5-star level, to use the term wrestling fans, or would you gotta go to manscaped.com, put in the Suplex, and get 20% off and free shipping.
Yep, and thank you to Manscaped for sponsoring this podcast. Now, into the preview for the Saturday Night Dynamite, we have, obviously, the TNT Championship matchup between Cody and Mr. Brody Lee. We also have the Elite taking on the Dark Order, being Kenny, Hangman, and the Young Bucks. Actually, no, it's Kenny and the Young Bucks, so it's literally the straight-up Elite versus the Dark Order. We then have FTR versus Private Party, which I think might be the match I'm looking forward to the most, because I think these guys will put on one hell of a matchup. And then the Lucha Bros and Butcher and Blade will be teaming to face the Natural Nightmares and Jurassic Express. So, Floyd, going into this preview, any thoughts on these matches?
There was one match missing, and this was on me. It wasn't on the official preview. Also on that night, you will get the finals of the Women's Deadly Draw.
Yes.
Yes.
So on YouTube, we will have there will be the semifinal matchups, and then the finals will be on Dynamite.
Yep. And the semifinal matchups, do you remember who's facing who? The Natural Nightmares, I believe, are fighting Diamante and Ivelisse. And
let me look it up real quick.
Okay.
I will look it up, but while I'm doing that, tell me your thoughts on these other matches.
Other matches of the show. Cody and Brody Lee, I'm excited about. Brody Lee is a person that's only lost one match, and that's to Mox. He is the leader of the Dark Order, which got introduced last year at All Out, which is crazy. And no one knew who they were. And then this year they are this kind of dominant group. And so I think the next year of AEW is going to be built around them. So I could see Brody Lee winning this match. But I don't know what they're gonna do, especially so close to All Out. Do they go Brody Lee, or what happens there? Next thing, and how's Matt Cardona going to play into the result of the match? I really do think he's going to have a big part of it. Then we got FTR versus Private Party. Think about this match. I think this is kind of the Styles Clash thing. Styles make fights. So you got a really high-flying, up-paced team, and then you got FTR, who is kind of the slow-it-down team. I want to see if they're going to work that style. The Butcher and the Blade versus who? SCU?
Butcher and Blade. It's going to be Butcher and Blade and Lucha Brothers versus the Natural Nightmares and Jurassic Express.
Well, Butcher and Blade and the Lucha Brothers are undefeated as a foursome, so I'm thinking that's going to still be the same way. And so, yeah, I am really looking forward to the show. The Elite versus the Dark Order. Of course, you're not getting the premier members of the Dark Order. There is a pecking level. There are levels to this shit. So you are getting Reynolds, Silver, and Angels against the Elite. And I think Kenny Omega could beat those three by himself. So it should be a high spot match. I imagine that will be the first match. And I would love, if the Bucks and Kenny come out first, that they be looking around to make sure they don't get attacked. I would love to see that kind of progression in the story.
Yep. And the matchups that are for the semifinals of the Dynamite Women's Tag Team Deadly Draw is Big and Little Swole versus the Nightmare Sisters, and Ivelisse and Diamante versus Tay Conti and Anna Jay.
Yeah, I gotta go. If I'm looking at that, we gotta go Big and Little Swole to me. I mean,
that's what I was going to say, honestly. I don't think the team of the Nightmare Sisters is going to last for too long.
Yeah, so I would go Big and Little Swole. And then on the other side, I like TJ as a tag team, but, I mean, I would go Diamante and Ivelisse, especially with it being on TV. Those are probably the four most experienced performers, too. So you want to have a strong match if you're going to give them a match on TV. So, yeah. And, Brandy's great. Brandy's great. Allie's great. And Allie was on TV for years, so I know Allie can work. So, yeah. So I'm looking forward to both those matches on Monday, and then we get to see on the show on Saturday. Now, there was something I did forget, and I probably have to go fix it later. But this show is part 1 of 2. We actually got an interview going on at the end. I'll explain more in a minute. But I wanted to say it at the beginning of the show and realized I didn't.
All right. Well, if we need to, we'll have you record it on the back and then place it at the front. So it's all good.
Cool.
But yeah, overall, I will say also Darby Allin will be in action. Hell yes.
Yes.
And that's pretty much all we have for the preview and all we have for part 1 of this episode of All Things Elite. We want to thank you guys so much for tuning in, and also make sure again to follow us on social media at AT Elite Pod, at Social Suplex, at SSummer4, and at Floyd Johnson Jr. on Twitter. And Floyd can lead us into this lovely interview that we have that goes into this episode.
All right, so this it really wasn't supposed to be an interview. It was kind of us talking about wrestling. I wanted her to be on the show, but our times didn't match up. But I just think what she has to say about wrestling is, really good, slightly different from what I have to say. And it's one of those people that you follow on Twitter, and everything they say kind of gets you thinking about why you like what you like, why you don't like what you like. Her name is Melody. And then it's going to be her Twitter is at Blitz Enterprise. I'll say that during the second half of it, and if you want to come back and listen to it, it'll be great. But we had a good time talking. We got a lot of thoughts on what she thought about the current version of AEW and where they stand at their current time. This was shot before Dynamite. So there was no predictions or anything like that. Just letting you know, it was shot before Dynamite. So if we're not talking about stuff that happened on Dynamite, that was the reason. So we do thank you for listening. I hope you stick through and listen with us, because it was a great time. But you know what? If you're ending here, I will tell you, and whether it's home, work, or school, always do your best to be elite. Now we're on to part two. Hello, and you're listening to a very special edition of episode 73 of All Things Elite. I am Floyd Johnson, and with me today is someone that I have been following on Twitter for a month or two now, I guess. I love her thoughts on AEW and all things Elite. Her name is Melody. And how are you doing today, Melody?
I'm doing just fine, Floyd. How about yourself?
I am doing well. Now, if you want to follow Melody on Twitter after you hear her amazing thoughts, I'm sorry if I'm setting you up there, but you can follow her at Blitz Enterprise. It's Blitz like you're, blitzing in the NFL, and then Enterprise all together. So I don't know how active you've been on Twitter before the last month or so, or if you've been active forever. But yeah, I just like one tweet, and I was like, I completely get what you're saying. And then there was another one, there was another. I was like, follow. And there was another one. I was like, and then I messaged you like a week ago, and I was like, I need you. Do you do podcasts? I need you on the show because I seriously love how your mind works. I love how you see things. I will be first and up front that we don't necessarily agree on everything, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with people not agreeing on everything I thought, and as people will know on the show, I actually prefer people to disagree with me because I already know what I think. I want to know what other people think. So I'm glad we could get our schedule together. Full disclosure for everyone listening, we're actually recording this Wednesday afternoon before the August 12th episode of Dynamite. So everything that we say is before Dynamite. This will be.
We know nothing. We know nothing that's gonna happen. I mean, that's it'll be 6 hours. 6 hours before Dynamite right now. So we're literally just gonna be shooting crap on what we think is gonna happen and see if our predictions are correct. So this will actually be a pretty fun episode.
Yes, it's going to be fun. Then we're really gonna, like I said, I want her thoughts on this show. So we're really gonna talk about just AEW in general, like the leadership, the different divisions. What you think about, who do you think maybe is the future of it, and I just think this is going to be really fun, and that's what
maybe at the end of all this, we have time, we'll talk about tonight's card and see what we're going to think about tonight, because this is a very special episode of AEW Dynamite that we're going to be watching in just a few hours, where it's Tag Team Appreciation Night, which I'm definitely excited for, especially since we have a tag title match on Tag Team Appreciation Night. So this is going to be a pretty fun episode.
Well, let's talk about your favorite AEW wrestler. That actually leads into this. You are a Kenny Omega guy, right?
I've been a huge follower and supporter of Kenny Omega since 2012. I started watching a little bit in 2011, but 2012, when I started watching DDT, he just captured me as a wrestler, but he really grabbed me as a performer and a storyteller in 2013, where he went to New Japan to become the new member of the same group that he led all through, I think, 2017, his Bullet Club, which a lot of New Japan people, whether you've watched New Japan from 2013 to now, Bullet Club is, of course, one of the most profound stables that wrestling has to offer. That so many of your favorite superstars like Finn Balor, who was Prince Devitt, Adam Cole, Bebe, of course, being a longest reigning champion in NXT. You have Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. There are so many wrestlers that came from that stable that spans out to today. But Kenny Omega definitely attracted me as a professional wrestling fan the most, is because in 2011, when Edge retired and the Summer of Punk was officially over in WWE, wrestling just started to become stale for me. And WWE was the only brand I had watched at the time, because I grew up with it. Like everybody, when we talk professional wrestling, you talk about WWE. It's the only brand a lot of people knew and grew up on until today, where it's expanded to hundreds of different brands of professional wrestling. Things, brands we know and don't know, they're out there now. And in 2012, I started watching DDT and New Japan at the same time. Like, I started briefly doing it because I was thinking, well, I love professional wrestling. If there aren't any professional wrestling franchises in Japan, I knew nothing about any sort of wrestling franchises at all. So, me studying Japanese, and I'm still very novice at it after almost 10 years, goodness me. Studying Japanese, just the language itself, because I just wanted to learn another language, and I started studying that in like third grade. So that was the first foreign language I tried to learn, and I thought it was fun, so I kept going at it. But when I started watching DDT in New Japan, like, of course, you have these Japanese talent and everything else, but of course, there was this one foreign talent that captured my eye, and that was Kenny Omega. And he, of course, him being the crazy wrestler that he is today, it's just, he just tells stories like no other. And from the Golden Lovers era to Bullet Club to now, there is no wrestler that I think I'd rather follow when it comes to the beauty of what professional wrestling has to offer, from physique to storytelling to move sets to character / gimmick, whatever you want to call it. And knowing the person's professional and personal life, like from gaming, and tells you his personal life out the window, just because Kenny Omega is just one of those wrestlers that won me back into professional wrestling. And I think if it wasn't for Kenny, I probably wouldn't be on this podcast. I probably wouldn't be loving professional wrestling anymore. I probably would have found something else to do or talk about in my life. But Kenny Omega saved my passion for professional wrestling. As long and strong as that is, I could go on for days about how I appreciate Kenny Omega as a person rather than just a wrestler.
Well,
He's just one of the... Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's awesome. I mean, and that's a lot of people's story. You know, I mean, yours is your story, and it's very specific. But for me, you know, people that have listened to the show, it kind of lines up the same way. WWE was like Coke to me, like a lot of
Right?
by the drink. You know, it's like everything's a Coke. So every wrestling is WWE. It was WWE, and anything else was little WWE. It wasn't. That was it. And I told people, like, I tell people all the time, as long as I've been watching wrestling, which is like birth, I still didn't watch a lot of indie wrestling. I had been to a few local Oklahoma indie shows, but the late 2000s with ROH, I saw a match here and there, but I wasn't really into ROH. WWE was my lifeblood with Raw, and then they had SmackDown, the pay-per-views monthly, and, you know, trying to keep up with their little ancillary products, whether it was Heat or Superstars or whatever. WWE for a long time quenched my thirst of professional wrestling. I didn't need to find any more. And then they went through this period. Yours was 2013. For me, it was more that 2016, 17 area where I was just getting really down on the product. Like, it was work.
Yeah.
It was work.
2016, 17 was bad, yeah.
Yeah, it was like work. You know, watching it every week, and I was doing a podcast, that Start Podcast, and it was work talking about it. So I was like, you know what? There's other wrestling, you know. And
exactly.
For me, Cody had left around, you know, Cody had left in 2017, and I was a fan of Stardust. I know, don't judge me.
I'm not going to judge you at all. I love the Stardust character because it reminds me, of course, being like the younger brother of Goldust, and of course her father being Dusty Rhodes, which was gold and black all over the place, yellow and black all over the place, and it was cute. I love that gimmick. It was a fun gimmick.
It was like that, and it was the fact that when you can tell when wrestlers, I think you can tell when wrestlers are phoning it in, and you can tell when wrestlers are passionate about it. And the thing about it is, even now I'm more impressed because I found out he wasn't the biggest fan of that character, but every week he would go all out for it. You know, he added different moves. He had the voice. He was trying to get the catchphrase over. They put him in different groups to try to, and it was clearly supposed to be a comedy act, which is, whatever. But the reason I bring that up is Cody. Cody, I heard, hey, he had joined the new Bullet Club, and he was going to be on he was going to be on Wrestle Kingdom. And then they were like, and it was the big news as I had started getting into being more involved in the internet wrestling community, is this guy I'd never heard of called Kenny Omega. And he was wrestling this other guy I'd never heard of called the Rainmaker Kazuchika Okada. So
Yes.
I came to New Japan because of Cody, right? If it wasn't Cody, I would still not know who Okada or Omega is to this day. So I always tell people, like, I have my emotional attachment, of course, is with Cody, but seeing Kenny Omega, he left me in awe the first time I ever watched him wrestle, and it was just like literally in awe. It was like I've never seen. They went, I think it was almost an hour that night, and it was like, and I'd never seen someone wrestle a match that long at that pace. It was just like, an hour match is sitting in a chin lock for 25 minutes growing up. That was me. It was Flair and Dusty, and it was like, oh, they went an hour. I'm like, dude. I'm like, seriously. They were in a headlock for 30, 45 minutes of that hour. No disrespect. I enjoyed the crap out of that match. But there's a difference between a Ric Flair hour match and a Kenny Omega hour match. Kenny Omega hour match reminds me of soccer. It's just...
Oh, yes. It's like back and forth. You don't know who scores, who doesn't, who gets the goal, who does not, who makes the save, who's not. It was just mind-blowing. That match is still, to this day, one of the best wrestling matches that I've ever watched in my history of professional wrestling.
I always say, I love Flair and Steamboat. I love Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. I love Kurt. I love Kurt Angle and his many different feuds. But no one touches Okada and Omega. It's
absolutely not.
It's Okada and Omega and everybody else. So leads me further. And how do you feel personally, as someone that is Omega fan longer than I've even known who he is, and we are now roughly a year from All Out, a year and a few months from Double or Nothing. What do you think of his booking in AEW so far?
So, I believe Kenny's booking in AEW is, again, another one of those slow build stories that I believe that Kenny himself had put his mind into creating this story that we're still seeing today with him and Heyman. He wanted, of course, to be the top wrestler. He still wants to find out, I was big in Japan. I can be big here too. And his booking was almost immediate, which a lot of people at first, like a year ago, thought, oh, okay, Omega's the EVP, then they're going to book him to win the championship overall. Not exactly the case. So with him going against Moxley for the very first time, it was supposed to be like at All Out before his Moxley's MRSA injury. So, of course, that booking and that story would kind of put to a halt when Pac was, of course, in Moxley's place on that All Out. Full Gear happened, where the feud between Moxley and Omega was just almost at its peak. They booked them for Full Gear for this unsanctioned match, and that was pretty much it. He lost, and now they're saying, oh, Kenny Omega's not booking well in AEW. What's happening is that he's pretty much want to pull over talent first. He knows he doesn't have much left in the wrestling as a whole, so he wants to make sure he books himself to where he can still be the top guy, but also help other people be top guys as well. Fast forward to today, where he's actually the longest reigning tag team champ with Heyman and Page, and they're creating a story between this distillment between the two. It's just going to book Kenny to become a more powerful singles competitor. Overall, he's going to be in the title picture once again. It might not happen after All Out happens. It could happen another year from now before Kenny actually gets booked to become a champion. It's one of the slow building stories that happened in New Japan with him doing the Golden Lovers thing from like what 2014 all the way up in 2017, 2018. And it's almost similar to the booking of Naito. For 4 to 5 years, he became the top guy and was double champ. Kenny's probably going to do the exact same thing. It's going to be a slow build from bottom to top all over again.
See, with Kenny, and tell me how your thoughts on this. I've seen him as out of all of the elite, he has the lead. He had the least to prove coming to AEW. Like, I think Cody had the chip. Still has that chip on his shoulder. He wants to prove that he's a top American draw. He wants to prove that the WWE was wrong. Hangman is actually still at the beginning of his career, so of course he's got a bit to prove with him being a draw. But as far as Kenny and the Bucks, Kenny's been, Meltzer's Wrestler of the Year. He's won so many awards, 6-star matches and stuff. He became the New Japan World Champion, I think, which was his goal in professional wrestling. And in the Young Bucks, they're already considered, in a lot of terms, the best tag team in the world. So I don't think those three came in with that chip that need to be featured like a lot of people thought that they did. I think that was a false assumption that people outside saw. And it's like, and if you look in the division, they've done everything to get Hangman over. Tagging with Kenny has really helped with that. And then of course Cody's being up front with the TNT belts. But the Bucks and Hangman, who they just wanted to create something new, present wrestling differently, they don't necessarily care if they're the AEW tag team and world champions. Like, they do it if that helped the company, but that need to be pushed up front doesn't seem to come from them. You know what I mean?
Right. I completely understand that, and I believe you're absolutely correct about fronts. The thing is, when it comes to Kenny, he was one of the hottest, if not the hottest free agent of 2019 when he left New Japan. His contract was up. He dropped the title. He dropped the IWGP title before he left. And the Bucks left with him, and because their contract was also up, they wanted to pursue other things themselves. They were already stars. They were already household names. Kenny Omega being a household name in New Japan, while the Young Bucks, which they were called Generation Me back in TNA, they were already named like the best tag team in the world, even before they went to New Japan. So Kenny and the Bucks had nothing to prove. You're right. They were already household names. They were already stars. So once you see them and you know their names, it's great. Kenny Omega almost went to WWE before the training incident happened. He just didn't like it. He left. So he decided to just pursue AEW, be with his friends, be with the company. Cody, of course, yes, he does have a big chip on his shoulder with the WWE. He has a huge chip on him that, of course, sometimes, and I've seen it all happen, and they're kind of right, the cracks in WWE is starting to get a little old because Cody has this big chip on his shoulder to show, he's a star, he's the son of the late great Dusty Rhodes, and he wanted to prove himself with the TNT title punch being around his waist. He's a champion, he's still got it, whatever have you, good for him. Hangman, yes, started his career from New Japan to now. He's still a young guy. He still has a lot to prove. He'll be champion in no time. So AEW being created for this sort of bond themselves on what their true objective is as professional wrestlers, not as a group, but separately. It's just something that we are still witnessing, and we're only a year into the company, which is nuts.
Yeah, so, okay. You would set me up perfectly for transitions. We're talking about Kenny Omega. So let's talk about the men's division in whole. Right now it's led by Mox. He's the guy. He's the company. And then you got Cody in the TNT Championship. Tonight he has a match with Scorpio Sky, which is honestly like other than Eddie Kingston, like my most anticipated of the Cody matches.
Definitely.
Yeah, because I'm like literally, this is the first one where I'm thinking he could, lose, and it would make sense. So,
Right.
so us going forward. What do you think about the men's division? What do you think about Mox as the top guy? What do you think about introducing the TNT title in like within the first year and going with the secondary title? I honestly just kind of go off the men's division. What do you think about it right now?
I will have to say this. The men's division, of course, is dominant across the entire company right now. Going from Moss being the top draw, it was meant to be. To be brutally honest with you, ever since he appeared at Double or Nothing to face Kenny Omega, Chris Jericho, like came in through the crowd with a thunderous pop from the crowd, it made sense that John Moxley was going to be the top guy sooner than we thought. Like we thought he was going to be the top guy right off the jump. If it wasn't for that, the number one contender match between Kenny and Jericho to get the title, which Jericho presumably won in the first place. When Moxley came through and he wanted to be that top draw, he is that guy to hold that belt. And my God, he has held the belt. He has held the belt so well. His mannerism and happiness towards AEW, I could feel that the moment he stepped into the AEW ring for the first time. So Moss is that draw. Moss is that guy. I hope he holds the title at least until All Out. Maybe he'll drop it against MJF. Who knows? But regardless of what happens at All Out, he's that top guy. Cody, I love Cody to death. He is one of the most decorated He's one of the most decorated people in professional wrestling, for sure. He'll be a Hall of Famer long after he's done, to be brutally honest. But him holding the TNT title was almost predictable to me. To be honest with you, Cody holding the title was a little predictable. Primarily because of how Cody lives, eats, and breathes AEW. So for him to get that TV title belt for the first time when you had 7 or 8 different people that were pretty more likely fan-wise to go towards the main card and hold that title for the first belt. Like, everybody wanted either Archer or Darby in the finals. Like, let's be really clear. Everybody wanted Archer and Darby in the finals. How Cody got in there and just broke everyone's balance within the first match, it was like, oh God, is AEW really going to put Cody on that top spot already? Cody really doesn't have to be in the top spot. He really doesn't. He could be this great talent and hold the company down as executive vice president, but to him to hold a title right now is a little too soon, especially when he already competed for the AEW title before. But that's just me. When it comes to the Scorpio Sky match that's tonight, I believe it's time for Cody to drop the belt, especially since they're going to be revealing a new title design later tonight, which I'm excited for. So he's definitely has time to shine to show that, he's that top guy, but it's time for Cody to drop the belt. But every single guy in the division are stars. Some should have got pushed a little bit further than others, but that's just me. But the men's division in AEW is okay. Let's be honest. They're okay for now because of how they're booked. I just wish that there were different things that were included in the men's division, but that's just me.
So excluding Hangman, who is, everybody knows he was the first kind of the single signee of AEW, so everybody sees him as future. Who are you most excited about going forward? Because the Elite, all of them have basically said they're going to be done wrestling within 5 years. So you leave this, except of course Hangman, but you leave this big youth there. There's Jungle Boy, MJF, of course. Like I said, Hangman, you gotta say his name, Darby Allin. You even got Brian Cage, who will probably be a bigger part going up. And he's not young, but to the American audience, he was, the hardcore fans know who he is. Impact Wrestling and
Mhm.
Lucha Underground, they know who he is. But on a much more casual basis, Brian Cage is probably being introduced to a lot of people. So, who do you think is that guy, that person to lead the men's division in the future? And it doesn't have to be any of the names that I said, but I just kind of want your thoughts.
Well, there are so many names that deserve their time to shine. Like Scorpio Sky, for example, he deserves a really big push. Whether he wins the TNT title or not, he's up there. Darby Allin, definitely. Like the stuff that he does in the ring is so insane that his athleticism and willing to take those bumps, willing to rise to the top by any means necessary, even if he pretty much kills himself doing so. He really deserves the top spot as well. Jungle Boy, definitely. He wants to be. I know Jungle Boy wants to be known as not just the son of the late Luke Perry, the son of a movie star. Jungle Boy wants to be not Jack Perry, but the professional wrestler Jungle Boy. I believe he definitely has his time to shine, and that's just three. But you're right, Brian Cage is new to people. He's not exactly the young guy in professional wrestling. I don't see himself as the top guy of the brand per se, because I feel like with Taz being his mentor, having the FTW championship all the way around his waist already, whether that's going to become a defendable title or not, Brian Cage, I believe, will try to push or try to get over younger talent, similar to what Kenny is doing right now. I don't see Brian as the top guy in the brand, but I definitely see him as a decent performer in professional wrestling as a whole. But Jungle Boy, Scorpio Sky, Darby Allin are my top three for sure that deserves to lead the future of AEW.
Yeah, like tonight, I'm a Cody guy, and Cody want Cody to win. But most important with wrestling, I've always said I love the story that makes sense. And I personally I don't necessarily think it's time for Cody to lose, but I think it's time for Cody to lose to Scorpio. You know what I mean? It's just like
Yes.
he's just the right guy, and it's
Right.
Cody big on holding this division down. I think he's done great of making the TNT a title that matters, and he's done his job. I mean, especially with the finish on the belt tonight, and they get to finish on the belt, and it's gonna look shiny. It's kind of time to pass that torch, and I know it's only been a couple months, but because a few months, I think he won it in NMA, of course, but with all the challenges he made, all the matches he's had with it, it feels like a 8-month reign. It
does. It feels like it's been a longer reign than it has been. I can't believe it's only been 2 months that Cody's had the belt, but he's been defending it almost every single week, besides last week when he tagged with Cardona.
Yes.
And he's had his time. Like, I love Cody to death. Like, he is AEW. He is the face of the brand, but it's time for Scorpio to have his time to shine. He already fought for the AEW title at one point. It's time for Scorpio to become champion.
I mean, and in this case, I completely agree. I know I will, my girl Tiffany, I'll catch some stink, before, because we both.
She's probably giving us a stink eye so she listens to this. That's why we both want Cody to lose. Tiffany, I love you.
Yes, but like I said, it just seems like the perfect time. But AEW has done this great thing. They zig when you think they zag. It's like you really did. I really did think Kenny Omega would be AEW champion within that first year. I really did think, if it wasn't Omega, it was going to be Hangman. I really thought the Bucks would be tag team champions by now. I mean, I could tell you a whole bunch of stuff I assumed the day that they started the brand that has been different, but I've loved it like every step, and it's been great. Now we love it. We love the men's division. So now we're gonna not everything is sunshine and rainbows. And with Twitter, a lot of lot of eyes have been on that old women's division.
There you go.
It is this.
I got some words for the
I,
women's division.
yeah, I was gonna say I want to start with something sweet before we maybe hit the bitter. So, yeah, it's led by Cara Sheeter right now, the third champion. Just for people that are catching up, she is the third women's champion in the company. We got her. We got Swole. We got Nyla. We have some people on the injury side. We got Chris Statlander injured right now, and she's probably not coming back to 2021 at least. And then Britt Baker is recovering from an injury. So, I didn't do this for the men's division, but I am gonna do for women's division. Your opinion, straight what you think. What letter grade from A to F would you give the booking in the overall women's division as of right now?
To be really honest with you, on the AEW side of the women's division, I have to give it an F. Straight down.
All right. Break it down.
So let's take it from the very beginning of the women's division of AEW. Britt Baker being the first women's signee to the company alongside Kylie Ray, who was supposed to be in the women's division, but of course she left. The whole women's division changed when she left. Brutally honest. If it wasn't for Kylie Ray leaving, I don't know if the women's division would be better or worse, to be honest with you.
She looked like she was going to be the face of the brand, you know.
She was going to be the face of AEW's women's division. Not Brandy, not Britt. It was going to be all Kylie Ray all the time. She was probably going to end up becoming the first women's champion, not Riho. Speaking of that match, when the women were the stars of the show at first, when they did a tournament for the women to have the women's title, having so many talent that was supposed to be, coming to AEW from All In 2018, going towards Double or Nothing 2019 until now with Dynamite. Riho deserved the belt, and now, of course, being the top star that she is already, being women's champion before Hikaru Shida won it, there are so many changes and obligations to the women's division, with so many women that also work for other companies: Riho, Yuka, Emi Sakura. Except for Hikaru Shida, that was the only Japanese Joshi wrestler that was available. They're all in Stardom. They, of course, with the pandemic, they had other obligations. It's why Riho wasn't on TV for her title reign, and she barely defended it, except for maybe one time or twice against Nyla. Then, of course, was Chris Statlander, supposed to be booked to be the big star. She got injured, and she was injured prior to her match to win the women's belt to try to be able to go against Riho for the women's belt against Nyla, and of course lost. Chris has had obligations with Beyond Wrestling and injury. That's why she's not the top person right now. That's why she's not on TV right now. There are a lot of women in the women's division that deserve their shine. But when we were introduced to AEW Heels, as well as the Deadly Draw Women's Tag Team Tournament, I believe that tournament as a whole definitely showcases how AEW could book the women's division properly, aside from the men's. However, with Dynamite, Dark, and the women's tag, among other things, if all of that was booked in one show, because people are complaining that the women's tag tournament was on YouTube. If the women's tournament was fitted onto YouTube, Dynamite would be a 3 to 4 hour show, just like Raw or SmackDown. The network can only do so much. The network can only cover 2 hours max, and that's it. So That's what YouTube came about, is because AEW will be able to use Daly's place. Tony Khan, of course, will be able to use the brand to use Daly's place to be able to tape those two shows, Dynamite and Dark. So that way, everybody will have their chance to shine, and it'll still be showcased on a platform that a lot of people use nowadays, which is online. We're getting women's wrestling from AEW. It doesn't have to be on TV for us to witness what's going on here. We watched WWE Evolution online. Most of us have, except for the people that are actually there. There's about 1.5 million viewers, if not more, for the WWE Evolution, all online views. We're doing the same for AEW with the YouTube for free, and people are complaining. I cannot really stress enough that the women of the women's division, Brandy's not the booker, Kenny is not the booker, Cody is not the booker. It all depends on who works behind the scenes on who books the women's division. It all depends on what they can fit and not fit into Dynamite or TV as a whole, trying to tell like 15, 16 different storylines from different teams and different performers and different talents on that show with Dark and Dynamite and watching BTE in between. All of it would make sense if people just watched the show in the first place. Like, if you want to see how women's wrestling can change as a whole, as a brand, watch the tag tournament, buy the merch, and show AEW that you want more women's wrestling. If you actually watch the tag tournament and their views go up, that will give them a sense of clarity. Be like, oh, that means we can definitely bring something like this to Dynamite, put some other storylines to the side so the women can have their chance to shine and actually be able to have the women's belt defended properly once quarantine is over and the injuries have healed, so the women's division can be bigger and better than ever come next year. It all depends on the pretty much how the public is perceived the women's division as a whole, on supporting them by watching the tag tournament, buying merch, and just supporting women's wrestling as a whole. It's not so much AEW is not listening to you. It's how they want to perceive the women's division based on your product, your buying, your witnessing what the women's division is doing. I believe the women's division could be a lot better. There's so many flaws right now, but with COVID, there's no way to really change those flaws right now. There's so many women that are still not really signed. They're only free agents. They want to do what they want for a while. They want to see what brand fits them. They probably never get signed to AEW. And AEW can only sign so many people right now because of COVID and travel restrictions and no ticket sales since the pandemic started. It's all about the people watching at home wanting to support their talent by giving AEW the profit that they need, the ratings they need to be able to build something bigger and better. And that's not just for the women's brand. That's for the men's division too.
So what do you think about the correlation that people were making between the women's division and AEW heels? Because as I understand it, AEW heels is more of a fan club for women, exclusively for women for AEW, and then that really doesn't correlate with the division. But people already know my thoughts. So what do you think about those two things being like a direct correlation between those two?
Well, first, I did think that heels was actually a pretty good idea from the start, and here's why. When you watch a sport, when you see women watching football, women watching hockey, women watching soccer, you always have that person next to you of the opposite gender, a male, try to explain to you how this works and whatever have you. They kind of talk down on you like a child. Coming from a woman's perspective, that they talk to you like a child. When it comes to professional wrestling, people, like most men, won't think the women knows better. The women are only following professional wrestling because they're hot or whatever have you. The women's inclusiveness to AEW heels is important, not just for AEW women's fans, but for fans of professional wrestling as a whole. for women. So to correlate those two together, with me actually going to the very first, the exclusive AEW Heels seminar that we did, of course, the downside is paying $50 or whatever have you for just being a woman, be exclusive professional wrestling. It's a lot more than that. So I'm not going to jump too much into what the call was about because, I want to keep it inclusive for the women who actually experienced it or to actually, have the, and then, of course, relate to the public what AEW Heels is actually doing is it's not just a fan club for women. It's not just a fan club for AEW, hanging out and interacting with the talent. It's nothing like that at all. It's about not only strategizing how a woman is supposed to, correlate themselves in the workplace from brand perspective. Being the CBO of a brand as a woman is tiring. And to pretty much bring knowledge from social media strategizing to how behaviors are in the workplace, how it correlates to our daily life, to be able to have women, become more forward, not just to be in the professional wrestling industry, but also just as a whole in daily life, to become, women of our own power to work in certain companies or to work in certain brands, whether it's wrestling, whether it's for informational systems or any sort of career you want to get into. It's about a safe space for women to talk about their troubles when men have actually, let's be honest, men have tried to overrule women when it comes to sports, especially professional wrestling. I've seen it on Twitter too many times. And to be honest, it's pretty sickening. Like women being called names or being deemed stupid or we don't know what we're talking about. It's very hurtful. It's just a place for women to come together to talk professional wrestling and to also be confident that as a woman, you're just as strong as any man can ever be. And that's pretty much what AEW Heels is for women to actually be confident in themselves, to become business experts, to become just to exist as a woman, as a person of the opposite gender, because we see on Twitter about equality between men and women. You see the equality issues between same sex or different sex relationships. If you're LGBTQ, there's so many social things that's happening in social media that we're all getting broken apart into different groups. Who likes what brand and who likes what brand. And it's not so much as AEW Heels becoming a fan club. It's just a space for women to talk about professional wrestling and not get downed on. And to also become stronger people in the end and to do better on how to interact with some people that may not have the same opinion as you do. But it's so much more. It's worth the $50 to pay for that 1 year subscription and get a lifelong lesson in 2 hours. That's how crazy AEW Heels was on its first running.
Well, I am glad that you got to. I'm glad that you got to experience Heels. I'm glad that Heels exists. I am glad that people that are listening to this show that might not understand Heels, that you gave a little bit more clarity on what the product is, what the program is as they're moving forward. I think that is amazing. That's what I'm glad we got that information out there too, because it was just like I said, I did not know this was needed. Let me be 100%. As a 39-year-old cis male, the idea that it was needed, this women's space to discuss professional wrestling was lost on me. I mean, because, I talk about wrestling all the time. I'm in like 100 Facebook groups, but then it made me think about how male dominated those groups are. And, and how many vocal and leaders of the women's, as a woman do we have in those groups? And it's definitely not what definitely not what I would want. And what I found out, through education, through talking to the women in my life, is that you are dismissed quite a bit. And it's like, hey, this is not me giving validation to any argument. This is me as a man, figuring this out and finding this out. That there's this, whole idea that you can make the same, we can make the same points 2 minutes apart from each other, and yours at times will be ignored, where, mine might explode and get like likes and stuff, and people are like, man, that's a great point. And it's like, well, she made the point first, but, you don't think that because, you don't look for something that isn't really a problem for you. And now, like I said, once it came out, I got to talk to Tiffany, and I got to talk to Amy or Phoenix AEW. I got to talk to all of them, and it's like, oh, okay, and how happy they were, and just, some people come into tears because they're very excited to have the space, and I'm like, okay, this was needed, and that's great. So I'm glad to hear what you had to say about it. As far as the deadly draw, we are down to the last 4 teams. Of course, we got the Nightmare Sisters. We got the Swoles, Big and Little Swole. Little Swole is Nicole Savoy for people not aware. But then we got Diamante and Evilise. And then we got TJ, Tayanara County, and Anna Jay. So which one of these tag teams are you most excited about?
Oh, see, going down the line, I love the Nightmare Sisters. I believe somehow they become such a great tag team, but I also think they're going to fall apart in the very end. I don't know if they're going to end up going to the finals or not. They're going to fall apart at some point. So I don't think the Nightmare Sisters, as much as I love Brandy and Allie to death, they're definitely not going to last a while in this tournament. So they're definitely not going to be there. For Big Swole and Little Swole, of course, they're a team beforehand. It's nothing new to if you watch the independent wrestling scene. Big Swole and Little Swole, Nicole Savoy, they've teamed before. They were a tag team for years. Not a lot of people know that. And the chemistry that both of them have after not teaming together for a very long time is there. And I'm so happy that they're pushing themselves to be in the finals. But do I think they're going to win this tournament? I don't think so. I think they'll come far, but I don't think they'll last. Same for Nemesis, they won't last.
Who do you got?
For Diamante, I think I got between TJ or Evilise and Diamante. I got TJ. I think it's going to be an upset for TJ to win the whole thing.
That is pretty wild. Anna Jays hasn't been wrestling that long. Tayanara Conti, a lot of people like me, when she came out the gi in WWE and she was flipping people around, I was like, man, they got something here. And then they never went anywhere with it. They just, it was just like they even did the whole "Don't Call Me Crazy" gimmick with her. I remember that, and
Yes.
I have followed her. Her career has pretty much been all WWE NXT, so I followed her, and I just like, man, I always saw something. It wasn't like, oh, she left the WWE, now she's done the great. I saw it in the WWE, and I was really shocked they couldn't make it work. So I was very happy. It was like she was one of the names when they were talking about people that released. I was like, man, okay, she could help the women's division, because I think their plan with the women's division was to have their steady people, and then just to bring people in from the UK and Japan, from Stardom or wherever, every now and then to help fill out the roster. Well, then COVID happened, and that plan doesn't work anymore. So now you're going to have to start looking at more of the American talent, and you see them bringing it in with Nicole Savoy and, Taya and even Arian Andrews to a point. Just like, hey, we're going to see what works. We're going to throw it out there, and then it can be like Ricky Starks. It was like, you didn't know if he was going to get signed, and then he comes in, he gets a tryout, and he kills it with Cody, and then, they were like, before he even left, it was like, okay, you're signed, and it's just like, that's the scene. That's what's great with AEW is like you can see people get discovered in front of you, like some people, Tayanara wasn't on TV a lot. People that are watching NXT all the time know who she is. But to a casual fan, she's being pretty much introduced brand new. And of course, Anna Jay, you can't really get any more new than Anna Jay. And so, yeah, I like that pick. I think that would be interesting going forward with the whole cup and what they decide to do with the tag team division. You made a strong point earlier that I actually made last week. There's a very easy way to get more women's wrestling.
Definitely.
Watch it. Buy it. Support it. I mean, that's Tony Khan is a numbers guy. He's an analytics guy.
Yep.
If the women are selling more shirts than the men, if the women's segments are spiking every week, you know what he's going to give you more of? He's going to give you more women's wrestling. And it's just that's how it works. And it's just that's how it works. It was like, oh, I think that there was a stat that came out that when the elite are on the show, ratings are higher. Just them being on the show. Any member, just them being on the show. Because I think we had a couple shows where they weren't on and the ratings weren't great. Then you see the Cody Open Challenge come. And then you see how Young Bucks have been featured. You've seen how Kenny Omega, after that first spike and shut down the COVID, how many times Kenny Omega and Adam Page have defended the tag team titles. I think this is about to be their 4th or 5th defense since they got back. And it's like, okay, you've shown us that you show up for these guys, so we're giving you more. So it's simple. If you want more women's wrestling, we want more women's wrestling, if that's the goal, equality, it's the goal, which I think it should always be the goal. But if that's the goal, support it. Show them that you want it, and then you'll get it. And it's so weird to me. It's like how, a lot of people will check out as far as wrestling, and it's just like, that's the exact opposite of what you need to be doing right now. You need to, especially with that division, you need to be on YouTube watching their matches, getting Deadly Draw up there. So that was just my thought on it. And last but not least, so who's your person? Who's the woman in the women's division moving forward? Who do you think is the woman to build the division around?
When she comes back, Chris Statlander. She was supposed to be pushed to the moon before her injury. When the Nightmare Collective stuff happened, things got a little bit awry. She didn't get injured and would be on wrestling and everything. Chris should have been the next one to really push the women's division. I love Nyla. I love Hikaru Shida. But Chris Statlander, she's a star. Point blank, she's definitely going to push the women's division forward to the future.
Yeah, it felt like when we first started seeing her in the Boop and the Alien, it felt like she had a lot of heat behind her, and it was like a lot of people wanted her to be the person. I even compared it to kind of Braun Strowman, where it was just like when Braun Strowman first started doing anything, everybody got it. Everybody got what he was supposed to be. It was like, okay. And it was like hot, and they were like, push him. And then they kind of, lost it with him. And I felt like AEW, which I know on this show is the proclivity for positivity, so we do focus on what they do right. But I think with Chris, it was like she was ready for that push, and I think they stopped short. And of course, the injuries, the Beyond thing, there was a lot. It was snake bitten from the beginning, but it was just like, okay, maybe they didn't go as far as they could with her. But I do like that as a pick. I think she's one of the more versatile athletes in the company, which is awesome. I want to know how her ACL injury affects her moving forward and her mobility. Because, like I said, freak of nature. She's 6 foot and could, do every...
She's a strong woman.
Yeah, she's strong, and she can do things that, people much smaller than her do, and it worked, and her matches worked, and so I definitely want to see that going forward. I love that pick, Chris Statlander, moving forward. The last division we're going to talk about, and of course, It's the one closest to my heart. That's why I had to save it to last. It is the tag team division. Now, I fully expect for you to go against me on this. My biggest complaint about the tag team division is you went out and assembled this division. You introduced best friends at the beginning, the Young Bucks, Lucha Bros. That's the night of the introduction, you know. Then you got LA, I always call them LAX, but Proud and Powerful, Santana Ortiz. You got the Butcher and the Blade. You got TH2. You got the Nightmare, Natural Nightmares. You have all these established real tag teams in the division. And my biggest concern is that the Flybite Phenomenon tag team, which is Kenny Omega and Hangman Page, have your tag titles. So, me personally, I don't like it. I want it to be on one of the 9 million established tag teams they have. What do you think about it?
Oh, where do I start with this? The tag team division is huge. I think it is bigger than the men's division and the women's division combined. There are so many tag teams in AEW. Like, some still just newly formed by the day, by the week, by the month. There's way too many tag teams in AEW. Let's just be point blank right here. With Kenny and Heyman being the quote-unquote thrown together tag team, even though they were together before in the Bullet Club, I truly believe they were booked to be tag team champions a little too soon. With those two being established names in AEW, being the tag titles, which they're undefeated, 11-0 in the tag ranks right now, and they're going against Jurassic Express. There's so many other tag teams that could have held those belts already. I believe TH2 is the most underrated tag team in AEW. Pandemic be damned, I hope they go to the top. I love TH2 to death. Proud and Powerful, of course. LAX, very decorated tag team. FTR, again, very decorated tag team. I see them getting the belts before TH2. But the tag division is too much. Like, you have all these trios, all these duos that could easily strive well to become singles competitors in their own right. But I love Kenny and Heyman. Their story is building up to become a very intense story between them and the Elite and FTR. There's going to be a huge fallout between those teams soon enough. Kenny and Heyman is no longer become a team after this. I'm just predicting this. They're not going to become a team for too much longer. There are so many teams that can be pushed to the top. They're so underrated, like TH2. I see TH2 becoming the next best tag team of the tag team division. But of course, they also need to lose some of the tag teams. Let some other people give their time to shine in singles comparison, because there are a lot of people like Scorpio Sky who left SCU for a bit to get this push to be a singles competitor is something. So maybe AEW should do more of that. I don't know.
All right. Yeah, I've been seeing, like, I love the Lucha Bros as a tag team, but I think they could add to the singles division being separated. Because Ray and Pentagon I really saw as two separate entities for a long time before I even knew that they tagged up and won all the matches. So, but yeah, tag team division is my favorite division. You love the fact that you like TH2 touches my heart. I go on all the time and I try to tell Jack Evans how awesome he is. No one needs to tell Jack Evans how awesome he is, but I still do it.
He already knows.
He already knows the dude. Again, a term I use often, freaking nature. When you see people doing things that normal people shouldn't be able to do, and it's just like him walking on his hands, and it's not like he's like 2 years in the business. He's like 20 years in the business, and he just like gets it. I mean, he's just got that athleticism about him, so that's awesome. But yeah, it was like it always, it was one of those minor annoyances. I love Kenny. I love Hangman. I don't know what's going forward. The best thing about it is with AEW is that they do leave you wanting more, and they don't give you everything right now, and you like what's next. So I think that's really good with them. Yeah, so we talked about all the divisions, we talked about all the shows, we've talked about everything. So just just in general, moving forward, looking forward to All Out, and I guess it's going to be called, Full Gear. What do you see moving forward? Who do you see being Mox? Do you think MJF's going to be Mox, or?
I don't know. See, I'm torn. So John Moxley's still that draw. He's that guy that has the title. Mox has become a huge draw in the business. But with the Cody and MJF story pushing forward, and MJF won the feud against Cody, and then really didn't do nothing else with MJF after a while, maybe with a twist of uncertain events, he might come out on top and be the next champion and just have his little reign of terror in AEW. I'm torn. I would love to see what happens to either in each result. Like, as far as I know, I think that's the only match that's been announced for All Out as of this moment. But yeah, I have nothing. I just want to see what's going to happen from here until All Out. I'm excited.
Oh, yeah, I'm very excited about it too. Well, I feel like for the first time that we've talked, we got a lot of good information in there. So we can just wrap this up. And I want to thank you, Melody, for coming on the show, giving your thoughts. I seriously can listen to you talk about wrestling all day, because it's just, like I said, it's just a little different enough for me to appreciate. You know what I mean? So it's like, I definitely making time in the middle of your afternoon to talk about wrestling with me is appreciated. I want to do this again. I would like to make
definitely.
this. I was about to say I would like to make this at least semi-regular, because I know, I love everyone that listens, but it's like, it's great to have a different thought, an alternative approach to liking wrestling, and just I hope everyone that gets to listen to the show knows I don't hate Kenny Omega. For some reason, it's weird. And I brought this up. Someone asked, who's your least favorite member of the Elite? They asked that question. And I hate that question, because because it's like, if someone gives you 4 dope options and they say, which one do you like the least? Okay, that's the one I like the least. I mean, I still love it, just like that one the least. And it's just like, but the way it's turned on Twitter is that you hate that person because you said you like them the least.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Like, Twitter just makes things harder than it already is.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if I were to pick the least favorite person out of the Elite that I don't like, even though he's technically not anymore, but Cody. Like, Cody doesn't need the Elite. So
Yeah, and that's all I'm saying. It's not saying that you hate Cody. It's just saying, okay, I'm more attached to these characters than I am to that character.
exactly.
That's just, that's what I'm saying. It's just really funny how people can take you saying one thing and say, oh, that means this. And I'm like, no, that doesn't mean anything. Kenny Omega is within 100 miles of me anywhere. If he's in a bingo hall within 100 miles of me, I'm driving and going to watch Kenny Omega perform in that bingo hall, because he's an amazing wrestler. It's just, as far as emotional, I will always say Cody's 1, because Cody led me to the Elite. Young Bucks would be 2, because I actually met Young Bucks in a hall in Oklahoma City where they flew in. They flew in, did like an hour signing, had dinner with Kevin Nash, and flew directly out. And it was just like, I just saw the work ethic immediately, and they were just like super nice. And you didn't think, I'm like, and I didn't know like who they were at the time. So they're taking pictures for like $5, and doing this thing. And I'm like, and then I go home and I'm like, whoa, they could have charged way more that if they wanted
For
to.
$5? Are
Yeah,
you
$5
serious?
for a picture with them. It gave me for $15. I got a group picture with the Young Buck fans, and then they gave me 8x10s, and it was just like the fan service that they do as far as meeting and greeting their fans and talking to you and asking about who you are, just amazing to me. And then Hangman, and honestly, if you would have asked me in like July, it would have definitely been Kenny over Hangman. But the whole drunken Hangman thing and Hangman having a drinking problem, I've come around. I think
I
they're
love him.
if
I love current Hangman. I love drunken, always drunk before a match Hangman. That's just like whiskey is his superpower,
yeah,
Hangman.
yes.
So
So it's just I feel like he's the best booking job they've done in the company.
definitely, definitely,
I
I
think
definitely agree.
I like within 6 months, people are going to be howling and begging for him to be champion. And I think it all started with not putting the title on him immediately, and saying, okay,
Right.
yeah. So I think that's great. And so I don't know. I love everybody in the elite. I hope no one ever takes me as anything
Please
but that.
don't take don't please and please all the Cody fans out there, and especially you, Tiffany, don't attack me for not liking Cody as my least favorite person of the elite. I love Cody to death.
Yes,
He's pro wrestling personified.
yes,
I just don't like his character.
yes. Fandom does not have to be a competition. It's just so funny.
It does not. Pro wrestling shouldn't be that serious.
Yes,
Goodness. Like
yes,
sports teams can be that serious.
yes,
Don't take up on professional wrestling.
yes. It's like I said, I can I can love Cody and think he should lose tonight because
Hmm?
professional wrestling's different. It's a story. It's a soap opera playing out. It's athletic soap opera playing out. It's all of this, and it's like, well, I think that makes the best story. So that's what I want to
Right.
happen, as opposed to, okay, he's my favorite, so I want them to win every time. So that's just how
Right.
I've always seen it. I just want my guy on TV. I want to see him perform, and it's like if they lose, now did it suck being there and watching Cody lose against Jericho and never being able to fight the world title again? Well, yeah, that kind of sucked, but
I, yes, it's just weird.
but going forward, it seemed like it's been the best story for him because
Hmm.
now you don't have everybody saying, you know, when's Cody? When you going to put the title on Cody? You don't put the title on Cody. It was addressed. Now you can give the people that are in the world title picture your full attention. Dope ass matches with like last week with Darby and John Moxley, and then you got Cody holding down the TNT division, and it's just they seem to be where they're supposed to be right now. I hope more attention does get paid to the women's division in the future, and we get more eyes on it, and they sell more stuff. But it's just like I said, it's a lot of people just don't accept the fact that this company, as far as in-ring product, is a year and 3 months old.
Hmm.
We got a long way to go, hopefully. So just chill out. I think you'll eventually get
We
what
got
you want.
until at least 2024 because that's how long their deal with TNT is. We have another 3 more years to see if we got more change.
Yes, yes, and when done right, not everyone can be champion in wrestling. It's like I love New Japan, and I know how many people love Tomohiro Ishii, but you know what people have accepted? He's never going to be world champion. It's just like we love him. It was like he puts on banger matches, but he's never going to be the face of their company. So it's just like not everybody has to be in, every role. So I don't know. That's honestly just me kind of blabbering there for a second. But again, thank you for being on the show. Make sure you are following her at Blitz Enterprise. It's literally spelled like it sounds. Do you have anything else you want to put over? I know you put out a mix about a few days ago on your page. Is that pinned to your profile?
It is not. I'll have to pin it to my profile later. But yeah, I started making music because I was inspired by AEW's music director Mikey Ruckus, who is the music makes the brand, and I believe he is the right pick for AEW and how his music fits the brand so well. with that being said, I start making music. I'll have to pin it to my profile. I'll have to pin it as soon as we're done recording this. But I am on music. Well, I'm using Loudly to actually post on my stuff. So I'm on Loudly at Bliss Enterprise. Same thing. But yeah, maybe I can just start making music inspired by professional wrestling once I have a chance to. And that's just about it.
That is awesome. I look forward to hearing it. And this is the end of the episode. I know you've heard some before. I thank you for sticking with me and listening to everything we had to say. I just thought this was great. And I love the energy. I love everything that you bring to it. So I will leave you with what I always leave with you with. I will say be kind to each other, be nice to each other, be respectful to each other, wear a damn mask, and whether it's home, work, or school, always do your best to be elite.